Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. While I figure out how to use my camera, we'll do a quick intro. So for those of you following our Snorkel build project series, you'll know that we are going to be going with a pre-cleaner on our Snorkel. That pre-cleaner is going to be the Snorkel upgrade Sy-Klone 9001, and today we're going to show you all about it. So this is the Sy-Klone 9001 by Snorkel upgrade. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of Snorkel upgrade. They're really popular in the last few years. A lot of our friends run this pre-cleaner on their trucks. It's highly recommended. So we reached out to Sy-Klone and they were very happy to work with us on this custom project. So huge shout out to them. So what we're gonna do now is we're gonna talk a little bit about how the Sy-Klone works, why it is far better than the other pre-cleaners out there, and how we chose this specific unit for this project. So first off, why use a pre-cleaner? So most snorkels you guys are familiar with probably look like this. Here's the ARB Safari snorkel for my Tacoma, right? So most snorkels have an open intake with, a grill to prevent like a bird or something from going in there. But other than that, pretty basic. And this is gonna be exposed to all the elements that are outside of your truck. Your stock intake in your engine bay is protected from rain, protected from dust, not 100%, but significantly more than if it's sitting outside your truck. If you've ever driven in a convoy of vehicles and you're not the first one and you're on a dusty road, the amount of dust that gets kicked up is insane. So your engine bay typically is preventing a lot of that dust from getting into your intake, but now with your Snorkel, you're outside the truck. And a lot of people say a Snorkel is actually better for dust. I don't agree with that. Low-lying dust, sure, but when you're in an actual group of people wheeling this dust everywhere, having your Snorkel, a couple feet higher, you're still getting dust in there, no matter what. So that's where our pre-cleaner comes into play. Instead of a Snorkel intake like this, you're gonna replace it with the pre-cleaner. And what this pre-cleaner is gonna do is gonna prevent a lot of that dust and rain from making its way into your airbox and then clogging up your filter. So it's not quite a filter itself, but this is another layer of protection in your system that's gonna help keep your engine from inhaling dust. So there's a few different types of pre-cleaners out there. So the way most of these work is pretty simple. Here's your intake, right? So air gets drawn up through this grill around the sides, flows up, and then flows back down through the intake. And usually there's an area in here that just catches heavier particles like sand. And they do work. My friend does run one like that, and it does accumulate sand over time. So it does something, but this is something completely different. So what makes the Sy-Klone different is that there's actually a rotor inside of here that spins, right? So as air is drawn up through the bottom of the Sy-Klone, the velocity of that air, the vacuum from the engine, spins this rotor. And I'm gonna take this apart and show you guys how it works. But it spins this rotor, right? The rotor now is spinning the air around the inside of this enclosure, which introduces centrifugal force to all the particulates that are in the air. I know that sounds kind of crazy. It really does work. So with the centrifugal force, all the particulates are forced to the outside, and there's actually an ejector port here. So the airflow ejects basically anything that's heavier than air out of the ejection port, leaving only clean air to now go inside of your intake. So I'm actually gonna pull the bottom off so you guys can see the rotor and see how it works. All right, so I just took the bottom grill off. One nice touch I actually want to talk about real quick is that the screws that hold the bottom grill on are not sticking to my magnet bowl, which means they are actually a blackened stainless steel screw, which is really nice. So here's the bottom of the Sy-Klone. This grill obviously is going to prevent any large stuff from getting inside of the Snorkel. And then you have the actual Snorkel head itself. So these vanes are what directs the air and starts that swirling, right? Starts that swirling, starts that centrifugal force in there. And you can see inside this rotor, if I can spin it with my hand, you can see in there that rotor spinning. How cool is that? You can't really see it, but the rotor basically extends almost all the way to the outside edge, catching all of that air, spinning out all of that crap in your intake. So I'm gonna do a little demonstration now with the shop vac just to show you guys what this thing is doing. So first I'm going to show you really quick how suction actually gets this thing spinning up to a pretty high RPM. And now we'll use it to suck up some actual particulate and show you how it ejects out the side port. Alright, so here we go. We got this thing rigged up. There is an air gap in here, guys, between the vacuum and the intake, because I think the vacuum is going to pull a lot more air than an engine usually would. So I left some room so that that suction isn't as strong. So let's turn this vacuum on. We're going to feed in some dust and crap into this thing, and let's see what happens. Alright, so I just want to point out that most of what I had in my hand is still in my hand because it was too heavy to get sucked up, but you can see the amount of fine dust that it ejected out of the port. Alright, so obviously that was a pretty anecdotal test. We didn't get into the weeds of making sure the airflow is the same as you would see in an engine and blah blah blah. I did my best just to show you guys generally how it works and that it does work. Again, you can see so much of that fine dust stuck to the side of this thing. The rest of it is all ejected all over the table. And a lot of the heavy stuff stayed in my hand or I dropped on the floor for the most part. So that is why we wanted a Sy-Klone for this project. A normal snorkel head is just not going to cut it. So huge shout out to Snorkel Upgrade. If you guys want one of these for yourselves, snorkelupgrade.com. If you're not sure which one to select for your specific vehicle, reach out to them. Isaac at Snorkel Upgrade is a super cool guy. He will walk you through it just like he did for us. He will get you set up with the right product.